Okay, so I want to talk about the Harriet Tubman movie and all the uproar about the black male slave catcher. And I want to explain to you all that, in my opinion, this is a form of retributive justice. And this is why black women, if you're so inclined, should absolutely support the Harriet Tubman movie. Listen, retributive justice pretty much means that you punish a person in the manner that they criminalize you, right? So it's basically like an eye for an eye. And to me, it's a crime the way that these men have used every platform possible to completely throw mud and dirt and shit at the image of black women. And at this particular point, there's no amount of conversation that can be had with these men to change their opinions or to get them to change their behavior. Okay? And my best friend's mom always says this. Like, she always says, I can show you better than I can tell you. I can show you what I mean, or I can show you how something feels better than I can tell you what I mean, or better than I can tell you how something feels. So instead of constantly telling these men how their words and how their actions have just been constantly damaging to us, just show them. Let's just let them see how it feels. Let them see how it feels for the women of their phenotype to use every platform possible to take the worst images of them, portray those images as the norm, and then project those images all over the world. Now, of course, if you know anything about history, there were black slave catchers, particularly outside of the South, like in border states. Because if you think about it, if you're a black person and you're fleeing slavery, who are you most likely to trust? A white person or someone else who looks like you? And so you had people who maybe they were part of these kidnapping rings where they would capture, black people who were fleeing slavery for the reward money, and they would use black people, free black people, to lure those slaves in. And then you may have had free black people who, would turn the fleeing slaves in because they wanted the reward money themselves. So it's not completely historically inaccurate to have a movie show a black male playing the role of a slave catcher. Now, is that the exception and not the norm? Probably so. But see, we're pulling a U on you niggas. So we're going to take an exception and play it out on the big screen in front of millions of people and let you see how that shit feels. So in this movie, you have a black woman who is not from the U.S. playing Harriet Tubman. Now, for years, black actors in Hollywood and other actors have been talking about how actors from the U.S. are being shut out from certain roles because a lot of those roles are going to foreign actors because they take less money. And guess what? A lot of black people ignored it. This whole conversation came up with 12 Years a Slave and Get Out, and a lot of black people ignored it. A lot of y'all ignored it. As a matter of fact, Samuel L. Jackson received a lot of backlash when he publicly said, hey, Jordan Peele, why would you have a movie called Get Out? And it's, somewhat based on the black American experience, but the lead actor is not a black person from the U.S. He got a lot of backlash. But now that we have a non-black American woman playing Harriet Tubman, everyone's upset. To me, it's fitting. You know why? Because these black men have been all over social media saying that the best black women are the ones that are not from the U.S. So it's fitting that a woman that you would otherwise put on a pedestal above black American women is now playing a role where she's playing Harriet Tubman and where one of her main antagonists is a black male. and where the savior is a non-black male. Because, see, black men have kind of been inverting history for years, where they have been trying to suggest that their biggest enemies are black women and that other races of women are more supportive of them, when we know that historically that has not been the case. And there's no amount of conversation that you can have with these men to convince them otherwise. You can't be nice enough to them to make them change their minds. You can't publicly allow them to flog you verbally, to change their minds. You can't do it. You just have to let them see how the shit feels. So please support the Harriet Tubman movie. Like I said, if you're so inclined, if it's a movie that you didn't really want to see anyway, hey, that's your prerogative. But if you wanted to see the movie and you were excited about it, do not let these butthurt, angry people on social media talk you out of seeing it simply because they're all in their feelings about a black male slave catcher. Because guess what? Anytime there's an opportunity, they have no problem portraying a black woman in a way where she's just the most horrible example of humanity or womanhood or motherhood, and they'll take an example of one black woman and try to say, well, she represents all or most of them. So we're going to let you see how that feels with the Harriet Tubman movie. Let's make this a big hit. Let's enjoy the film. If you've read any reviews, you'll see that much of what the film talks about is historically accurate. And, it's not outside of what actually happened to think of Harriet Tubman being betrayed by black men because her own husband betrayed her. There are some historical accounts that suggest that when she first talked to her husband about wanting to flee, that he threatened to snitch on her, right? And so when she did actually leave, and then she came back for him, wanting him to move back up north with her, so they could be together, she comes back only to find that he was with a new woman, had remarried, and that woman was expecting his child. Then when she goes back to Maryland again to get some of her family members, including one of her brothers, she had to pull a gun out on her own brother because he was threatening to run back to the plantation. So if you know anything about the real life Harriet Tubman, she had some moments where she was very much betrayed by some black men that were very close to her. So don't get in your feelings about this black male slave catcher, because again, if it was a black woman being portrayed in a negative way, these men would not care. And also, like I said earlier, it is not historically inaccurate to have a portrayal of a slave catcher being black, particularly if you're talking about a border state. Now, you wouldn't have seen it in the South, okay, because in the South, all black people were pretty much assumed to be slaves unless a white person personally knew that person. But outside of the South, oh yeah, it happened. It definitely happened. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And if you've already seen the Harriet Tubman movie, let me know in the comment section whether you enjoyed it or not. But please, no spoilers, because I'm not going to be able to see it until next weekend. Okay, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.